Hello, friends. I'm Kush Khandelwal, and this is Ageless Athlete. A few years ago, I started asking questions that would not leave me alone. Why do some people keep pushing mentally, physically, spiritually long after others burn out or break down? What does it really mean to age well when you still crave movement, meaning, and mastery? This show is my search for answers. Each week, I talk to elite athletes, everyday adventurers, and pioneering researchers who are stretching the limits of what's possible across age, injury, illness, and self doubt. You will hear hard won lessons, untold stories, and science backed strategies for building a body and mindset that lasts. For those of us joining for the first time, welcome to the show. For the rest, thank you for joining us again. Time is our most valuable asset, and I deeply appreciate you giving me your time today.
Hello, friends. Welcome back to the Ageless Athlete Podcast. This is your host, Kush Khandelwal, reporting from Nuevo Leon in Mexico. Yes, I'm still on the road and the adventures continue, but we bring you these epic stories on a weekly basis, and we are back today. Today's guest on the podcast is not just a legend, she is a force of nature. Lisa Smith-Batchen has done what most of us would call impossible. She ran 584 miles across the extremes of Death Valley and Mount Whitney, not once but twice in a single journey. It's called the Badwater Quad, and Lisa is the only woman in history to complete it. But Lisa's story isn't just about mind boggling endurance or record breaking feats. It's about a woman who transformed her own struggles into a purpose so big it changed lives around the world. She didn't she didn't just run those miles for herself. She ran for people who walk miles every day just to find clean water. She ran to fund wells, provide hope, and prove that no matter who you are or where you start, you are capable of so much more than you think. Lisa's journey is deeply relatable because she wasn't a natural gifted runner. She was told in high school that she was too slow. Yet, through sheer grit and the belief that growth comes from discomfort, Lisa not only proved her doubters wrong, she redefined what's possible for all of us. In this conversation, Lisa will take us behind the scenes of her most grueling challenges, hallucinating a roadrunner in Death Valley, summoning the will to keep going when her body begged her to stop, and finding joy in the struggle. She will also share how she balances her legendary athletic career with being a coach, a mother, and an advocate for causes close to her heart. By the end of this episode, you will learn why aging can be your greatest superpower, how to overcome self doubt even when the goal feels impossible, and then why finding your purpose is the ultimate endurance test and reward. If you have ever faced a moment where you doubted yourself or felt stuck, Lisa's story will shake you to your core. It's inspiring, it's humbling, and it's proof that the limits we believe in are rarely real. So stick with us until the very end because the episode is not just a story. It's an invitation to dream bigger, live bolder, and rediscover the untapped strength within you. Let's welcome the awe-inspiring Lisa Smith-Batchen.
I am in our home in Jackson, Wyoming, and for breakfast I had 2 eggs with a whole avocado.
Beautiful place to start a beautiful morning. And I had everything you had for breakfast, except I added some rice and some chipotle salsa because I happen to be in Mexico.
That's very fitting.
Awesome. Is that like a typical breakfast for you or something different because maybe it's
You
Friday?
know, sometimes I skip breakfast, believe it or not. Sometimes it's more a cup of coffee, a cup of tea. I know that it's not good for you to not have breakfast, but I'm a big grazer as far as eating.
Are you eating breakfast after, let's say, some training in the morning?
So this morning I actually did eat breakfast after about 5 miles outside. And then I went back out again. I'm kind of trying to stick to my own 2025 goal, but I don't really like being outside in the dark in the super cold anymore. But today I had to take my husband to the airport at 5 in the morning. So I thought, you're up. Let's just keep rolling.
And Jackson, Wyoming is a special place. I was in your neck of the woods last summer. I was in Lander, Wyoming last July, where it was summer, beautiful, pleasant. But right now in Jackson, Wyoming, the weather is quite different, which for people who are not aware, can you describe to us how it is right now and how did it feel when you stepped out for this morning's run?
Cold, very chilly and dark. This morning it was about 6 degrees. And we say it's a dry cold, but the sky was beautiful, the stars were out, the moon was still shining bright, and I would, describe it as crisp and beautiful, where we are expecting in the next few days a cold front to come in. They're calling it the Arctic freeze, where by Monday it's supposed to be -15, which is really unusual for here. I would say there's not many days in the winter where if you have the right clothing and you're dressed appropriately, that you can't go outside and be active. Whether it's Nordic skiing, skate skiing, snowshoeing, running, snow biking, it's an incredibly active community.
And for those of us who use different measurements for temperature, I believe you are using these measurements in
Correct,
Fahrenheit.
yes.
I don't know if I've ever been in even in 6 degrees Fahrenheit, which in Celsius is negative who knows what. It's way below the temperature that water freezes. And when you talk about a cold front on top of this, it boggles the mind. So the fact that you are out there before the sun comes out in the dark, in those temperatures, leaves the rest of us with little excuse to not start our mornings with something somewhat vigorous outside.
Well, it's easy to find an excuse, but and I do find excuses, believe me. If I open the door and I'm like, oh, it is part of the aging, where the aging process of not loving the freezing cold or having to be so resilient to go out in the terrible weather anymore. I just don't really enjoy working out indoors. I love being outside, so I try to suck it up as much as possible to be outside and know that no matter what or what you're doing, you will get warmer. And you just have to start somewhere. I have some tricks that I do to get ready to go outside in the freezing cold that really help.
Oh, would love
I
to
don't know
know.
if they're tricks, but I put my clothes in the dryer. I put the clothes in the dryer and they get nice and warm and toasty before you put them on. Instead of carrying like a bottle of water, I carry hot tea so that I'm sipping, warmer water. And it definitely seems to help for me. That I just feel like that's something to consider before you're going out into the cold is that, be warm and stay warm.
This clothes in the dryer, that sounds amazing.
I know it's a lot of effort.
And I will agree that, one sometimes needs to be self-aware of one's needs, maybe be somewhat like methodical about combating those needs. So instead of coming up with blanket excuses, just really breaking it down and be like, hey, I like the feeling of warmth
Hmm.
on me to help me prepare if that's what it takes. And the cost is only running your dryer for a few minutes or turning on hot water. I think that sounds very justified. Before we go too far ahead, for those of us who don't know who you are, Lisa, can you tell us who are you and what do you do?
My name is Lisa Smith-Batchen. What do I do? I'm sort of a jack of all trades, master of none. Still working on trying to master a few. I am a coach, an endurance coach for all kinds of sports, all kinds of ages. My youngest student I coach right now is 18, and my oldest is 94. So I have a wide variety of coaching. I'm a life coach, I'm an executive coach. I teach classes based on functional fitness, and I just love the nurturing of people and seeing people accomplish something that they never thought they could do. That next to my family brings me the greatest joy.
I've been thinking a lot about energy, not just in training, but in recovery, in focus, in how we age. So when I came across NutriSense, it hit home. It's a program that pairs a 24 by 7 glucose biosensor with a dedicated dietitian to help you understand how your body responds to food, stress, sleep, and movement, and then act on the data. I chose it because I wanted something real, not another hack or one size fits all plan, just honest insight into what's actually going on inside me and how to build habits that last. NutriSense has helped over 150,000 people take that step. And if you want to try it, you can get 33% off your first month with code Ageless15 at nutrisense.io. Again, that's nutrisense.io, code Ageless15. You can also find this information on the show notes for this episode.
Lisa, wow, having that spectrum of age in your
Yeah.
students, I heard age of 6 and another one who's 94.
94. Yep. She will be 94
Let me
this
ask
year.
you, yeah, wow, that's
Yeah.
that's incredible. Let me ask you, what are maybe two things those two students have in common and two things which are very different about them despite their age?
One thing that they have in common is they have the greatest attitude of trying to see what they're capable of, find out what they're capable of at the age that they are, and really realizing that age is not a limiting factor if you set yourself up for success. So they both have that. And they're both growing and learning still in the same way. And secondly, obviously being a teenager and being 94, there is some differences in the mobility, the flexibility, and just the overall longevity of how you should approach the sport that you're trying to do. And the matter of fact, they're both skiers. They're both skiers and they both still ski. So they're both skiing, but the approach is just different. The length of time that you can be out there at 94 might be 2 hours versus spending 10 hours. So you're still doing what you love to do, but you just have to do it a little differently and maybe a little less time.
I'm odd that you have this 94-year-old student What specifically are you helping this person with?
Well, do twice a week with her. We do functional fitness, and it's a Zoom class that I teach, and she takes my classes that where we work on mobility, we work on strength, cardio, stability, balance. We kind of do it all. She has had a knee that's bothered her for a long time and has been told you probably shouldn't ski anymore. Well, she's not having that, neither am I, because that brings her such joy to get out and ski. So she is still skiing. And we work together, to keep her and to get her stronger. She's stronger this year than she was 2 years ago.
Amazing. Well, I'm
Me
inspired
too.
by you and inspired by this athlete that you're working with. Many of us, I'm 46 now, and I was just out for a long day of climbing yesterday, and I was being bothered by, again, my creaky knees on the descent down. And, next time that happens, I'm going to think about your
You
student.
should absolutely think about my student. I mean, there's many of them. That's just one. There's many of them, and it's why I love what you're doing with, your podcast, and really hope that more and more as we're aging. I'm 64. I'm happy to say I wake up in the morning and I have nothing that hurts. And I believe it's the way that I train, because of that. And I think that more and more people, as aging, it's like we can be younger by tomorrow. We don't have to be older tomorrow. We can be younger. And it's really a
Oh my
perspective
goodness.
of how you go about it.
My goodness. You're blowing my mind. I love this so much. Yes.
Younger
Younger
by tomorrow. Yeah.
tomorrow. Younger tomorrow, and pain free in the morning, and not have any age related stiffness when we get up. I can't wait to pick your brain a little bit on some of the things you've learned and can coach us on. But before that, for those of us not watching this on video, Lisa, I love this
I
hat you're
love it
wearing,
too, right?
and bright colors, and it has this bright, four-letter love written on it. And I thought this would be a question I wanted to ask you. So I've heard you being described, or maybe self-described, as a peaceful warrior, and I find that phrase so compelling. So yeah, is that true? Do you call yourself a peaceful warrior?
I think I became a peaceful warrior. I don't think that I started out as one. I think it's a growth process of I feel like I did the Badwater Quad. I don't know if you know that is, back and forth 4 times across Death Valley. And I felt such a transformation in my own life and in myself, where I gained such great wisdom, where the peace was truly like I felt like I was being a warrior, because it was very difficult and very challenging event for myself to do. But I also felt immense peace with just moving methodically and the learning, the wisdom. And it ultimately comes down to love, right? That's ultimately what I feel life is about, and longevity. They kind of go together, love and longevity, longevity and love. So yeah, I feel like I grew into a peaceful, like being very peaceful person, and trying to spread, peace and hope and love. And it's definitely it's a learned traits that anyone can gather and experience. For me, it came through endurance and being on my feet and time, with myself. I call it like, it's the greatest self-discovery of one's true self.
Friends, it means a lot that you're here. I pour a ton of heart into the show. The research, the interviews, the editing, it's all me, trying to share stories that matter. If Ageless Athlete has ever made you feel seen, inspired you, or just kept you company on a long drive, or better, over a run or a bike ride, I would be so grateful if you considered supporting it. Even a small amount helps keep it going, helps keep bringing the show to you for free. You can chip in at buymeacoffee.com/agelessathlete. Again, buymeacoffee.com/agelessathlete. You can find the link on the show notes as well. Thank you for listening and for being part of this.
Wow. Yeah, no, I mean that term, it suggests like calmness, but then also like strength. So like it's this duality that I love. So it came about over your learnings, and maybe it struck home after you completed this, let's say, mythical crossing, this race, which is yeah, maybe for a second, describe to us this I don't know, this history making run that you did, and then how did this run then eventually lead to you learning this about yourself?
Well, it wasn't a race. It wasn't a race. I call these like, journeys of self-discovery. Really, I don't race anymore. I haven't raced for quite a while. I feel like I did enough racing and it became where I just love to create and do my own. And, I certainly admire and appreciate anybody who does want to race because it is so worth it for sure. I'm not putting that past, and don't say that I had said you shouldn't race. But the Badwater Quad was definitely one of the hardest physical things I ever did myself, where you start at the lowest point in Death Valley, which is minus 282 feet below sea level. You travel on foot across Death Valley to the summit of Mount Whitney, which is 146 miles. And so Mount Whitney's over 14,000 feet. And you go from the lowest to the highest to the lowest, and then you repeat it again. And that I'm still the only woman who's ever, done it or finished it or accomplished it. I'm really proud of that. Just because I know how hard it was. It was really, really hard, and I hope other women get out there and do it. I know one has tried and almost, and we can continually try. It doesn't matter what your age is. You might go a little slower, but who cares, right? So during that whole process, it was over 10 days, like 11 days. You just beat, every obstacle known in your path, from sandstorms to extreme heat and darkness and hallucinations and just so much that you go through as a personal choice. Yeah, you're suffering, but that's by choice. I'm not suffering like somebody who's very sick. I'm suffering at my own choice, my own will. And you really learn to dig deep on how you're going to improve that. How are you going to improve that for yourself and keep going? Part of the learning to embrace your pain or your willingness to continue really comes from within. And you have to find a way to dig deep to allow that to happen.
Lisa, yeah, that's it. almost 600 miles from like the lowest points to the highest points of the US. They seem, let's say, unfathomable to a lot of us, including me, who is not a runner. I'm going to be a devil's advocate for a second
Of
here and
course.
ask you like a slightly contrarian question, which is, in this world we live in, there is suffering widespread, undesired suffering at a huge scale, right? All kinds of suffering that is out there that people want to get out of. The suffering that you went through was self-inflicted. So what is the point of that?
The point of that's a very good question. The point of it is truly to embrace one's self. Really, you're learning so much about yourself and about life and about other people and your surroundings and obstacles that are thrown in your path and how to work through them. I feel like it's helped me immensely in other areas of my life, realizing that we're so much stronger than we think we are. We're so much more capable than we think we are. We're all like big balls of clay that can be molded. I mean, you can be molded one way or the other. The way that you're molding your big ball of clay yourself is up to you. I feel like it's when write my books, it's when I do all these things. I haven't written any books yet, but I've certainly written them in my head, in my mind. But the core of challenging ourselves, I think that we are all meant to do that. And it doesn't have to be physically. It does not have to be a physical challenge. There are all kinds of ways to challenge yourself through knitting, through sewing, or, there's whatever it is that you choose to challenge yourself to do. I want to read 100 books in a year or whatever it is. I mean, put your whole self into it and hold yourself accountable, because the only person that is you. You make your decision. I made my decision that that's what I wanted to do for that. I did it. I raised money for clean water wells. I called it a project, bad water for good water. So when I put a purpose behind it with some passion, there's always a greater sense of the suffering changes. When I think of somebody who's holding a glass of dirty brown water and that's all they have to drink, that breaks my heart. Mm-hmm. If I can do something physically with my being an athlete to help others, that helps the suffering, because they're suffering a whole lot worse than I am. Mine's temporary. At the end of the 11 days, I got to sit down and the suffering is gone. It's gone, because not only you work through it, sure, you might be sore and your feet might hurt and you might be tired, but at the end of the day, you're sleeping on a bed and eating good food and drinking clean water. And it really kind of put it in perspective to me. I'll just tell you when I did the last mile, okay, I had 1 mile left to go, and it was exhausting. I wasn't ready to finish. I wanted to keep going. I wanted to keep going because I thought, like, geez, I felt so at peace with like just moving on my feet. My good friend Vincent, who was on my crew, brought me a bottle of water and said, I think this will be enough to get you to the finish. I mean, it's 125 degrees. And this will be enough. And, I want you to take this mile and go by yourself. You're going downhill to Badwater Basin, minus 282, feet. And I'm so emotional, very emotional. And we had just found out that somebody had died out there in Death Valley walking out into the desert because he didn't have enough water. So here I am walking with
Oh,
this bottle
wow.
of water, moving to the finish of this 586 miles, thinking that this bottle of water was my lifeline. This bottle of water, like the whole process, the whole sense of all of it came down to that bottle of water and the gift of clean water. And if I didn't have that water, there's no way I could have done what I did. So it just like sensible, like thinking like, wow, this peace came over me of how fortunate we are to have clean water. And that bottle of water could have saved that guy's life. It was I know it's hard to understand, but it was so emotional for me to think of like putting that all together.
I can imagine, Lisa, because like I guess, many things in life. I mean, it's all about timing. And this epiphany like came to you at this most
Yeah,
raw
that's
moment.
exactly a raw moment.
Yeah, I mean, it got you, it hit you, and you were at this most vulnerable point, and you took that learning though, and I think many of us, we often have that, and we will overlook them and waste them. Instead, you took that, and then you went on to dedicate a good part of your career towards raising funds
Yes.
to be able to provide clean water to many of the world's thirsty.
Yeah. A lot of the, I mean, over many years, it's, you know, truly winning races never really made me happy. That was not, it just was like, oh, big deal. I mean, honestly, it never made me happy. The true happiness and joy for me as an athlete came when I knew what I was doing was helping other people and raising money for all different kinds of causes, all different varies of things. It just gave me a really great purpose behind part of my why. you know. Otherwise, I felt, geez, leaving my kids, going out at 4 in the morning or whatever it did. It just, and when the going got tough in any event, to think of somebody else that we're helping because we're doing this, or groups of people, or whatever it might be, really just became such a passionate part of my why I do these things.
Lisa, no, this is so powerful because, in these kinds of, let's say, outdoor and obscure endeavors that we take part in, we, we're not becoming
No.
billionaires. We're doing it because the why becomes so important. And you shared just now that it was that like pivotal moment with that bottle of water, that person like starving or yeah, whatever, not getting water, and then you on your last mile. And so I'm wondering, was that like this turning point where you kind of shifted your purpose to raising your, yeah, shifting your purpose, or was it like, let's say, more transitionally? I'm trying to get a sense of like in your career, at what point did this purpose become more important than, let's say, the podium finish?
The purpose became more important when I met my dear friend, Sister Mary Beth Lloyd, who is a nun. And you should interview her because she's in her 70s and she's still quite an athlete. And we would run together. She would run in her black habit, and I, ran, when I was doing triathlons and everything it was. And this is long, many, many years ago. She was like, what are you getting out of this, winning these races? And sometimes I'd go on a Saturday and race, and on a Sunday I'd race. And, it never made me happy. She became the mission director for and created AIDS Orphans Rising, where it was her that pivoted my life into, you know, since all this racing isn't really making you happy, why don't you use it to help other people like me and help, all these kids? And it just sparked an interest. Like I'd never thought of that, never thought of it. So it became such an integral, big part of how I love to go about doing things, was that I realized putting your passion to a great purpose, and the purpose and the passion really go together. And I'm still very passionate about continuing to raise funds for various different causes. And the causes change over the years. Your passions change for things that you're passionate about. I'm very passionate now about mental health and sobriety and all kinds of things because, had personal challenges in my own family. And I realize there's such a need. There's so much need in so many different areas. Like you said, there's a lot of people suffering. There's a lot of suffering going on. And for me, my shift is always kind of changing of where I want to help and how I want to help. But it always stays within the helping of people, no matter what the age. And whether it's somebody who has no water or has no food or, is living on the streets because they're homeless, or an alcoholic who needs help, there's so much we can all do to help even one person.
I love it all. And before we move on, Lisa, are there any causes today that you are championing where listeners could also join and help with?
Yeah, I mean, right now I'm very passionate about an organization called Addict to Athlete, and it started in Utah. And Coach Blue is the head coach of Addict to Athlete, and it is amazing to be able to take an addict, an alcoholic, no matter what the age is, whatever you're addicted to. There's a lot of addiction. There's a lot of depression, anxiety, and all kinds of areas where this program works. So I took their program and I became a sober coach, where I like to help coach people that are in recovery. And they have a program where you can, if you need to help getting into sober living or getting into treatment or getting a therapist, most often insurance doesn't help people, or there's a lot of people who don't have insurance. But there is help available. There's definitely help available, and getting people from that situation being into doing something that's active is really a beautiful gift to give somebody, because being active is mind changing for many who suffer.
Hello, friends. Just a quick break. This is not an ad. If you have been enjoying these conversations, I would love for you to subscribe to my newsletter. It is where I go deeper, sharing stories, reflections, and behind the scenes insights that don't always make it into the podcast. I write about what I'm learning from elite athletes and how to stay ageless in body and mind. If you have ever wanted a thoughtful, inspiring read that ties it all together: training, aging, mindset, and awe. You will love this. You can find the link in the show notes, or just head to agelessathlete.co. Again, www.agelessathlete.co, that is, to sign up. And yeah, just a couple of emails a month, and you can unsubscribe anytime. Absolutely no spam ever. Okay, back to the show.
Lisa, is there a website where people can learn about the work and then maybe even donate or help with?
Addicttoathlete.com.
Okay,
Addicttoathlete.com. Yeah. Yep. I'm
perfect,
still,
perfect.
we're working on some things to do some big adventures and to try to raise awareness. The project is called Rise Up. Rise Up, rise up
Okay,
from the ground. Some of us hit rock bottom. I mean, I hate to
sure.
tell you, but I have been at rock bottom myself. From rock bottom,
Mm,
people can rise up, but it's very difficult to do it on your own. And, help is available.
yeah,
It's a crisis right now. I think their mental health and addiction and, you know, even being addicted to your phone. There's just, let's get people back being active and back into nature.
yeah. I actually really this work resonates with me in a way where I strongly believe that yes, people suffer from all kinds of ailments, and there are a lot of conventional treatments. And I mean, I'm no mental or substance abuse expert, but I sometimes think that just taking the substance away, you know, doesn't do the trick for most people. It's maybe taking the damaging substance away and replacing something with something else, which is, let's say, equally addictive in a good way
Yeah.
and also all consuming because you take away, I don't know, like somebody who's addicted to, let's say, cigarette smoking, right? And you introduce them to like running or, let's say, rock climbing. Then what happens is over time they'll find out that, well, if I continue smoking, I'm starting to love to run or to climb, and I can't be as good at it, and I want to be good at it. Plus, I'm now surrounded by other people who are also not cigarette smokers. They are not doing that, so maybe that allows, you know, just like altering that person's path instead of just taking the ailing thing away, just redirecting that energy, that time into something that much more bountiful.
Yeah, that's a great word, redirecting. Redirecting, giving other options, choices. I mean, we're in charge of our choices and our effort. And the effort and the choices go hand in hand. But it's always good to have people to help you stay accountable, to help, you know, cheer you on, and realize that we all fall short at times, but, you fall down, you get back up.
Love it. Well, folks, addicttoathlete.com. Please check it out. Before we move on, I do want to, you know, have you take us a little bit into the depth of one of your big runs. Let's just stick with the Badwater Quad that you did. 600 miles through extreme elevations, extreme temperatures. A lot of us, a lot of us would enjoy hearing a bit more about what that felt like. And I thought one thing I would ask you about is, so you have, I think you have spoken about like experiencing hallucinations, right? And I think I remember reading that you were hallucinating that a road runner
Yep.
was accompanying you, and I find that both funny, but then also deeply human. So, so can you talk about what was that? Like, actually, most people may not even know what a
Yeah.
road runner is. So, can you take us back to that moment,
Yeah,
Lisa?
that moment, I was extremely sleep deprived. very sleep deprived and heat exhaustion. And there is a place in Death Valley called Panamint Springs. And on their sign is a big roadrunner. They have this big painting of a roadrunner. Well, that roadrunner jumped off the sign into the road and started running and saying, "Catch me if you can." And it was like a pretend bird. It wasn't a real, there was not
Okay.
a real bird.
Right. You saw that sign, and in your altered mental state, you thought that this jumped out of the sign and joined you.
Yeah, jumped out of the sign into the road and was telling me, "Catch me if you can." And I was talking to it. I was actually talking to it. I knew I was hallucinating, and I knew it wasn't real, but it felt real. It felt real. And it went on for a while. It went on for a while till you actually sit out and rest. But it's incredible what can happen to you under extreme physical, circumstances. Yeah, it's funny. Thank God it was funny, right? It was funny. And I thought like wolves were chasing me, and there's all kinds of things happening to you out there that just really isn't real, because you're super tired and you're sleep deprived. And so, yeah, the road runner, and I kept yelling at it, going, "Get out of my way, beep, beep." I was like, "Beep, beep," the road runner, beep, beep. And it was hysterical. But to me, it was real. It's real, but you also know it isn't. You know what I mean? Like, it's kind of one of those things. You're in it, but you can't get out of it, but you're in it. And it's so hard to explain unless you've experienced something like it. And I know, a lot of endurance athletes who have done things like that, have experienced. I've got a friend, Mark Macy, who told me that he thought he saw a naked woman rollerblading through Death Valley, and he was chasing after her. And of course, there's nobody out there rollerblading.
One other thing I thought I would ask you, which some of us can possibly learn from, is, again, maybe just sticking with athletics and running for a second, is,
Sure.
It could be somebody who is trying to do a long swim,
Sure.
or is on the side of a wall trying to complete a long climb,
Sure.
and the end seems really far, right? And I'm just curious, how do you tell yourself or coach yourself to keep proceeding when you have, let's say, hundreds of miles left and you're feeling tired? You being human, I'm sure you also sometimes feel daunted. What are some tricks you have found to be successful?
That's such a good question. I have with literally most all of my students that I don't care who you are, you go through such phases of, being happy and feeling great, and then you feel terrible, and then you feel great again, and then you feel not so good, and your right foot hurts, and then your left foot hurts. And the process of being able to adapt your mental fortitude it's truly comes down to being the mental part of it, because your mind will do what your body will permit. Arthur Lydiard said that, right? Your mind will play so many tricks on you. There's, like, I'll say, on this shoulder is the monkey saying, "Lisa, it's okay. You don't have to finish. Don't worry. Nobody cares. Like, the kids you're raising money for will be fine. And it's okay if you don't want to finish." And then the other one over here is saying, "No, no, no. Will the real Lisa please stand up? Like, tell the monkeys on your shoulders to go take a hike." Like, that's not your goal. Like, always, like, sit down, take some time to rethink your goal. Okay? It's I can't go on. I don't want to go on. I can't finish. I don't want to do this anymore. I should be at home with my kids. I should be doing this. I should be doing that. And I should have never signed up for this. I mean, all of this process is very normal. And that's when you're tired. When you're tired and you're feeling really miserable. You are going to be miserable. And you have to learn how to adapt to being uncomfortable. And being uncomfortable means, stepping into the challenge that you set for yourself. And when I plan these, nobody's making me do this. Nobody's paying me to do this. It's all self-planned. So I'll always say, hey, if I signed up for a race, nobody made me do it. Nobody's making me sign up for it. But I'll take you back a little bit that there are reasons we don't finish things that we started. But I don't believe many start things that they would like to finish planning ahead of time not to finish. I think that there are reasons why people don't finish things. And I don't like the word DNF, did not finish. I think that that's, a sad statement. I use MTRC, made the right choice. Make the right choice. Sometimes you have to not finish for reasons, you broke your foot. You can't carry on. There are reasons why we don't finish things, but there are more people and more reasons to finish than to not finish. And, just because you don't feel like carrying on, that's a personal choice. That's a personal choice. But I always feel like you sit down, you think about why you're out there, and after a little bit of time passes by, you feel better. You get up and you try again. You get up and you try again. And the getting up and trying again leads you every step towards the finish of what you started. But you go into these knowing you're going to be uncomfortable. It's not all going to be, bells and roses. And it's going to be flippin' miserable. But you will get through it. And when you're in these things, when you're in these journeys or these adventures, whether it's a 5K or a marathon or whatever it might be, when you're in it and it's hurting, it's the hardest thing you've ever done. I'll say, right now, this is the hardest thing I've ever done because I'm in it right now. But I've done harder. You have done harder, and you may experience harder. But right now, it's hard. And you will get through it. You will rise above it.
Yeah, no, that's powerful. And I love this reframing of DNF or do not finish, because that just has like this negative,
it's so like loser.
Yeah.
Loser. No, you're not. If you start something and sadly you're not able to finish it, that happens to all of us, by the way. Everybody I know. The more you do something, the greater risk you have of not completing it. So join the club. Join the club. Don't go home feeling, with your tail between your legs. And there's reasons why we have to stop things. And I call that make the right choice.
Yeah.
Live to do it another day.
Yeah. No, and I think that hints to this greater role that, self-compassion needs to play in all our lives. We seem to all be tuned by the forces around us to always be trying to live up to like some idea. And then in the process, we forget who we are. And I try to tell myself that, after I've had a tough day doing something, whatever it could be, that, I do not suck. I'm still great. However, some things happened there, and I still came out with some learnings. There were still wins there. So even in this DNF situation, there are always learnings if you look for them.
Always. I mean, in anything, we're constantly learning. And the reason we continue to be adventurous and continue is because of the learning. I mean, I yearn to continue to learn. It's, I don't think I could ever learn everything that there is to learn.
Yeah. Let me ask you this, Lisa. You have this wide spectrum of clients that you have coached. Could you share maybe one or two stories of transformation?
Absolutely. Boy, one just recently. Her name is Tara. And last year, I got invited to go put on a fitness retreat on an Indian reservation in Arizona. I'm going back this year. But Tara picked me up, and we actually went to the Route 66 starting line of the race because it was during that time, November, that I went. And Tara at that time was very overweight. She was over 250 pounds and maybe like 5'2". And as we stood at the starting line of the Route 66 race with Marshall Ulrich and Mark Macy, and we did the first mile together. Everybody did the first mile together. Tara said to me, "Next year I want to do this." And I said, "Okay, let's go. How can I help you?" And it started there. And 1 year to the day, Tara lost 140 pounds and she completed the Route 66 140 miles on foot.
Whoa.
Yes. Incredible transformation. She made up her mind. We, continued to work together with plans, nutrition and hydration and the loss of weight. But also, she could barely go a mile. She went 140 miles across in Arizona.
Holy cow.
Yeah, this was just last November. So from 1 year, she lost all of the weight and completed her journey. That she stood there watching other people do it and said, "I want to do this too." And she did.
That is, yeah,
I'm
I'm speechless. So in 1 year, she lost 100 plus pounds and she completed the Route 66 100 plus mile race.
140 pounds.
140 pounds.
Yeah.
And she went from, let's say, maybe not being an endurance athlete to completing a 100-mile plus race.
140 mile
Holy.
race. Yes. So she lost 140 and covered 140.
So
Yeah, pretty amazing.
This could be an entirely standalone podcast on this person's journey. But can you maybe just share one thing that this person did? Just one thing that was so powerful.
Well, she was an endurance athlete when she was younger, and through various reasons in life, she gained all this weight and became unfit and unhealthy in her diet, her nutrition, and everything else of the part of life. And she had a lot of medical issues, and it was mostly due to being unfit and being overweight. So the greatest thing that I can see is that Tara made a decision that she wanted to change what she was doing and how she was doing it. And she asked for help. She asked for me to coach her, and I agreed and was so honored. And I knew she could do it because she set her mind to it. And every day, I would know what she was doing. She would tell me what she was doing and taking pictures, of herself. It's just the change of her attitude, the change of her purpose behind her self well-being, really the longevity of her life. to continue on to get to 250 and 260 was not going to lead to a long, healthy life. She will lead a long, healthy life now because she was willing to make the change. And she's young. She's in her 40s. You know, she's young. So it's kind of sky's the limit for her. Now, I mean, she's on a mission, and I'm actually going to see her next week. I can't wait. That, you know, that the teamwork makes the dream work. But ultimately, like as a coach, I take 5% credit. Maybe less. Maybe less. If the student follows the plan, if the student trusts the work that they're doing, they will be successful. They will succeed. And, you know, my coaching way, my coaching philosophy is unique in itself. There's many, many coaches out there, and every coach I think is awesome, you know, but my way of coaching, I'm an old pioneer kind of coach. Old school comes from really uniquely working with each individual of how am I going to help you get the best out of yourself and hold you accountable and help you. It's everybody is so different. I don't coach anybody the same. Completely uniquely different. There is no written agenda that works the same for everybody in my way of coaching. And that's why I feel like with longevity, you know, that's my younger by tomorrow. And I love the aging population. We're all aging, but you can decide if you want to age or if you don't, you know. You can be younger by tomorrow. It just depends on your mindset and how you go about it. There's no way I'm ever going to run a 6-minute mile again at 64 years old. Mostly because I don't want to. You know, I don't need to do that. I've seriously hit my potential as fast as I can go, but I don't know if I've hit my potential for as long as I could go. You know what I mean? And I don't care if I'm walking. I can walk 5 miles an hour all day long. It doesn't matter. You're moving. So you may age and not be as fast, but it doesn't mean that you can't still do what you love to do. You might just have to slow it down a little bit. And you might just have to do a little bit less of it. Cross training, you know, there is so many ways. I know I'm getting off track here, but it's like used to be-er. I'm a used to be. I hear this all the time.
Yeah.
I used to be. I used to be. I used to be. And I'm like, you used to be what? I used to be a runner. I used to be a tennis player. I used to be. I said, you still are all of that. You can still play tennis. You can still, you know, like, why do we give up? We don't have to give up the things that we love to do that brought us great joy. We just have to kind of change the way we do it.
Yeah, this is such an important topic and mindset, one that I am grappling with. Many people listening to this podcast also are faced with, which is, yes, there is, when we start with a new sport, or when we start with a lot of things, let's say at our physical prime, you know, we see gains, and that progress is so satisfying. And then you find you hit like some kind of physical peak, and like you said, you know, maybe that 6-minute mile pace is no longer possible. Like, what are some of those strategies? How do we shift that mindset where we don't stop doing what we're doing? We continue to get that, you know, squeeze out that joy out of our sport, even though the numbers look different.
Take the numbers right out of it. I mean, take the numbers out of it. It's truly, it's acceptance. You know, next I'm going to be 65, then 66, God willing. You know, we never know.
Sorry, okay, let's take the numbers out of it. However, whatever, I mean, as humans, you know, we quantify ourselves in some way. where I used to be able to lift my arm this high. Now I can only raise it this high. I used to, like, we are always, we are comparing ourselves, right, to some benchmark we have.
Absolutely.
So just telling ourselves that those benchmarks don't matter. I mean, that's like saying, hey, cigarette smokers, stop smoking a cigarette. It doesn't work. So
Maybe I need to rephrase that.
okay.
The way I said. When I said take the numbers out, I mean, like, sure, I used to be able to run a 6-minute mile. Now I can run an 11-minute mile. I take the numbers out because then I don't time anything anymore. You know, if I have an hour, maybe I go out for an hour. I don't care if it's a 6-minute mile or an 11-minute mile. I just go for the joy of it. Because if I keep those benchmarks, I keep those numbers, it becomes very frustrating. I used to be able to do that. Now, oh my God, I feel like I'm running a 7-minute mile, but it's really a 10-minute mile. And your mind is working on you, saying, you suck, you can't do that anymore. And I'm like, for me, I don't care anymore. Like when you take that benchmark out, that you have to care so much about it, right? That you can do it truly for the joy. Sure, it's great to keep statistics and all of those things if you're racing and you want to improve. But you can also improve as an age grouper. You can improve as, however you might want to improve. So let me back up again. The bench, I'm saying like I take that out of that equation because it only brings frustration. And coming to acceptance that we slow down whether we want to or not. We slow down. We see like, oh, I can't run a 3-hour marathon anymore, but maybe I can do a 5-hour marathon. And you become satisfied with that. But not everybody does. And I feel like it takes coming to acceptance with the growth of an athlete or the growth of where you're, meet yourself where you are. Allow yourself to be where you're at.
Yeah, that acceptance can sometimes be a bit more elusive. And I feel like myself, like I'm trying to chase both. I'm trying to still continue improving, let's say, as a rock climber. At the same time, I also want to learn how to accept that maybe there are some aspects of the sport, some grades, something maybe that I may not be able to surpass. So any strategies there where one can still keep pushing, but also find contentment?
Yes, that's very well said. Pushing and finding contentment with accepting that, sure, keep trying and trying, and that's what allows us to improve. The acceptance part comes with, do I want to get injured? Do I want to hurt myself? I would rather be able to wake up in the morning and have nothing that hurts and go with the less is more with quality attitude. Less training with quality equals feeling better than more. I have to do more in order to improve, which maybe creates injury and too much fatigue. I think there is a fine balance of grace that comes within each of us of how do you want to live your longevity. My choice is I want to live my longevity being able to do the sports I love for as long as I can. And when I stop loving them, maybe I'll move on to something else. And I think that we do stop. I stopped loving downhill skiing. All my friends here are like, let's go ski. I don't ski anymore. Why not? I just stopped having fun. I would rather be on Nordic skis or snowshoes or be free with it. But, putting on skis and sitting on a chairlift, it just became not fun. So, coming to realizations that there are so many things we can keep learning. I find that my coming to acceptance was easy for me. I'm very shocked to say that it was easy. It was easy for me to give up racing. It was like I'm not having fun racing anymore. I didn't want to work that hard anymore to race, but I like to work hard, climbing up big hills, things like that. Or I don't care if I'm in the back of the pack taking one of my 80-year-old clients up. Like I feel like I find joy in other ways to enjoy the sports I love to do. I know that several people, when they can't race anymore, they don't carry on with the sports, and that maybe they were so good at. And I get that too, that if you're not at the top anymore, you don't want to race it, you don't want to do it anymore. There's all kinds of perspectives.
This path that you have created for yourself, Lisa, I feel like that's so inspiring for us, where you have maybe taken, let's say, this strong focus on, being the best runner you could be, being a competitive runner, to now not being a competitive runner, but being a runner, but also helping others run by cultivating this community, by giving back in these deep, life-changing ways. I sense that's been profound in your ability to continue cherishing the sport.
Well said. Yes, I would absolutely agree with you. There's such joy in running and sport, that, I love to ride bikes and cross-country ski and swim and all those things. But my greatest joy does come from running. And it's like the greatest therapist, the greatest friend that I've ever had, to talk with and to share. It's just, there's so much that goes with it for any individual that experiences that. People experience it with swimming. They experience it in, all different sports, on bikes, and however you might experience where you find that joy. And it still brings me joy. I hope it always will. I don't mind if I'm just going to have to walk. I mean, it's just like being on my feet is very, I just love it.
Yeah.
Really.
Sure.
I just love it. You love climbing. I just love it. And so you find a way, or you make one. You find a way. You might not be able to climb as high or climb as technical, but you're going to always climb. You hope to, right? And if you're not, maybe you're teaching somebody else. And that the joy of like what you were able to do, passing it on to somebody else,
Yeah.
is a brilliant, part of a legacy.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Love it. Love it. I want to move to this part of the conversation I like to call being ageless. But being part of that also means, going back to maybe some of your beginnings as a runner, as an athlete. And I believe that you were told that you were too slow in high school. And then, you went on to do all the things that you have done. So I want to understand, do you think your success is because of innate talents, innate genetics that came to the fore later in life? Or do you think it's all because of just sheer grit and love of the sport? Or it's somewhere in that spectrum?
I am going to say that it's sheer grit and love for the sport. I work so hard, work really, really, I'm not a natural runner. I'm probably better on a bike than I am running. So I work really, really hard. I had to work really, really hard to get to a level of where I was. I mean, where I was and the level that people are at now, I mean, there's no comparison, but we're talking like you're always trying to break a record or do whatever when you're in that age or when you're at it. Like what I see now and the evolution of the sport, the evolution of nutrition and shoes and everything, it's such a beautiful gift for people, you know? Back in the day, boy, we had to work really hard, you know? We only had like red Gatorade and, you know, the shoes were terrible and everything else that went along with it. But I think mine really is grit. It's grit and mental fortitude, that I know being told that I was too slow and I wasn't any good, you know, definitely set me off. And when I finally realized I could run, it was like because I was mad. You know, I was mad and I'm going to beat you and I'm going to show you. And, you know, I was running mad. And, you know, I think childhood issues, things like that, that I was running away. I was running away from things instead of running to or running for a purpose. And it wasn't until I started running for a purpose and doing triathlons and things for a purpose that I found joy. And it's still all very purposeful.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think that part of your story is clearly evident. But maybe any, let's say, corporeal strategies that are part of your success as a runner. Like I love that a little early thing you shared about the warming your clothes, you know, in the dryer. I mean, that sounds, yeah, that's just a little thing, but obviously the work you were putting in those years, you know, to distinguish yourself, were there maybe a couple of similar things, maybe of obviously different scale, with your habits, discipline, that we can learn from?
Habits really, you know, holding yourself accountable, like, you know, setting your goals. What are your goals? What are your passions? What are your dreams? You know, the name of, I started Dream Chasers a long time ago. Like, I realized how many people didn't like it. They say, like, what do you want to do? Like, it doesn't have to be a sport. Like, what do you want to do? I don't know what I want to do. You know, find a dream, chase it down. Like, literally, like, what is your dream? A dream is a goal. A dream is an ambition, or a dream is something that you see, but you don't think you can do it, or you just, it's just there, and I'm just dreaming about doing it. Well, you can do it. You can do it. Your dreams have to become, you know, work them out in a positive way with action and fortitude, and set up a plan of how are you going to chase this dream down. And for me, chasing it down was literal. Chase, run. Chasing is running. So I'm running and I'm chasing my dream. And that's how I started Dream Chasers, and how I, you know, you have to have a dream. And how are we going to help you chase this dream down? You don't have to run, but we have to chase it by setting up a plan.
Maybe
You know,
an even more foundational question. You know, sometimes we hit these blocks in life where we stop dreaming, right? Like, and I think that's maybe a big cause of the mental health crisis that we see everywhere, is people seem to like not have something to go after. Any reflections
there's
on like
always some,
how can we find that dream for ourselves?
there always is a dream or a thought or something that you want to do. I think it's, if you are struggling, you know, with depression or feeling like you're hopeless or helpless and have no dreams, we kind of have to go back to the basics of life, the fundamentals part of life. Who are you? And what do you want to do with your life? And start with one thing. You know, whatever it might be, one thing. I want to write a letter. I want to clean my house. Like, those are accomplishments. So a dream, an accomplishment, helps us move forward in a dream. Oh, I did that. Maybe I can do this. Oh, I did that, so maybe I can do this. And the answer is you can do that. You can do that. You might not be the first person to get there, and you might be the last, but who cares? Who cares? This is a personal choice. Like Tara, who cares if she was last? I don't know if she was last. It doesn't really matter. It doesn't matter. I mean, setting up something that is so indescribable to most people, and most people would say there's no way she could do that. No way you could do that. Well, you know what? She did. She did. And that don't ever let anybody tell you you cannot do something and that you're not capable of doing something, because I'm here to tell you you are.
Yeah. Yeah, and maybe there is no dream that is.
No dream too small.
Yeah, not yeah.
No dream too small, no dream too big. But perspective. I mean, there's a lot of hopelessness out there. And if we can help people find one thing that they want to do, one thing that makes them feel good about themselves, that's a great place to start.
Yeah, for sure. When we started this chat, Lisa, you mentioned that knock on wood, you are waking up pain-free every day, right? And curious, maybe if you can share some of your physical practices, perhaps, which allow you to have the mobility and the strength, the vitality that you possess.
Absolutely. Well, I really believe that one of the greatest keys to longevity is movement. We've got to keep moving, however it might be. And I move a lot. I move my body a lot. I'm with my own exercise, but I'm a massage therapist. I think that nutrition, hydration, physical activity, whatever it might be, it all deserves an equal part of your life. What you're eating, what you're drinking, your sleep, like every bit of it is important, as is important as moving your body. Lifting weights, protein, those are very key things to like. I'll give you an example of, I set a goal for myself, an intention, I could call it as well, for the month of January to cover an average of 10 miles a day on my feet. So today's day 17. Before our call, I got the 10 miles in. Now, I got out of running shape because I was doing a lot of hiking and, summer here and biking and things like that. So I got out of running shape. So I decided that I would start walking, power walking. I can walk 4 to 5 miles an hour. Power walking, that's how I start to get myself back into running shape. So I walk myself back into running shape. I don't just go out the door and run anymore because, of age. And I know how to get myself back into where I want to be, and also with pain-free. So today's day 17, 18 of January. I'm on target, over 10 miles a day. And so covering 10 miles a day on my feet. 3, I stretch every day. Every day, at least 20, 30 minutes. Yeah. I lift weights 3 days a week. 2 of those days, I actually teach Zoom classes where I have several people who take my classes. And those are focused on balance, mobility, stability, cardio, and strength work. So I get to work out while I'm also teaching. But then I also do another session on my own. More than anything, being strong is super important. So like I told you, I graze as far as eating. I kind of eat all day long. Sometimes we sit down at dinner and have dinner together, but I kind of prefer to just like graze, eat when you're hungry, and take your time when you eat and eat slow and enjoy your food. So I'm always the last one done eating if we're out, because it's just like I like to eat slow and take my time, and don't rush through it. Take your time. It's a big deal. So I'm busy with coaching, and I spend at least 8 hours a day coaching. A lot of it's online. I see people in person at their homes for personal training, massage therapy. I do volunteer work at our aging facility here. So, yeah, I stay busy, which I love. I love to be busy, and I'm not too busy. I don't coach too many people. I just still, we're always trying to create balance, every one of us.
That's it, folks. Thanks for tuning in to this episode of the Ageless Athlete Podcast. I hope you enjoyed this show just as much as I enjoyed creating and producing it. Whether you are an athlete looking to push your limits or someone striving to maintain a healthy, active lifestyle as you age, there is always something new to learn. From Ageless Athlete, we bring you a fresh episode each and every week. If you liked what you heard, we would love it if you would take a moment to subscribe to the podcast so you never miss an update. And if you really liked what you heard, please leave us a review, crush those 5 stars on Spotify or Apple Podcasts or wherever else you listen to your podcasts. It helps us reach more people who are passionate about staying strong and resilient, no matter their age. Don't forget to visit our website and leave your email so I can send you occasional insights, stories, and tips to keep you inspired and motivated on your journey. You can also follow us on Instagram at Ageless Athlete Podcast and on YouTube at Ageless Athlete Podcast as well for even more great content. All of these links are available on the show notes for this episode. This show is entirely produced by me, Kush Khandelwal, based out of California with the help of my trusted adventure pup Roger. Until next time, keep challenging yourself. Keep pushing those limits. Stay mentally and physically fit. Continue doing what you love to do. And my friends, stay ageless. Friends, this is not an ad. This is just a quick message to those amongst us who are listening to Ageless Athlete Podcast for the first time. I would love it if you would hit subscribe and follow on your favorite podcast app, whether it's Apple Podcast or Spotify or Stitcher or Overcast or what have you. We bring you stories and routines and other inspiration from elites in the world of the best outdoor sports. In each episode, you will find how these athletes stay connected to the outdoors, maintain peak performance, and continue to thrive as they age. I encourage you to look through Brad episodes and listen to a couple and see if they resonate. And then, come back next week. We release an episode each week. And I am really inspired to bring you some of the best stories from the world of the outdoors. Okay, back to the show.